Hello, today I'm going to be showing you how to make a dried flower wreath. We are going to be using Gomphrena or globe amaranth, which we harvested from our farm this summer and dried for a few weeks in our drying room. But you can use other dried materials like lavender or grasses. The technique will be the same regardless. So why don't I go through and show you the supplies you'll need. First, we have a wreath. I made this out of vines that I harvested on our farm, but you can buy wreaths pre-made at craft stores, really whatever works best for you. We also have dried flowers. This is the Gomphrena I showed you. This bunch is about 1.5 ounces. And then when we actually use it, I've cut them into shorter pieces that are about 4 inches long. You'll also want some 22 gauge wire, scissors, and wire cutters for this project. So to start, you're going to take a handful of your dried flowers. I've trimmed these down a bit to make them easier to work with. You're going to get them in a bunch. I'll take a handful of anywhere from 5 to 10, kind of arrange it to your liking. And then when you have a bunch you like, trim off the longer stems. And then I'm going to start here and take some wire. This is 22 gauge floral wire that I just got at the craft store. Affix it to my wreath here. I'm going to twist those ends over so it's nice and secure. And now I'm going to place my dried flowers onto the wreath. And then I'm going to take this wire here. I'm going to wrap it around. And I'll wrap it around 2 to 3 times and kind of arrange those flowers the way I like as I tighten it down. You'll want to make it nice and tight so the flowers won't go anywhere. And then once you've wrapped it around a couple times and they're secure, you can go ahead and grab your second bunch of flowers and start this process over again. There's no right or wrong way to grab the bunches or any hard and fast rules about how many flowers you have to have at one point. It really depends on how thick you want your wreath to be in terms of how much flowers are on there, or if you want any of that vine showing behind it. It's all just personal preference. So we're going to wrap that wire around a couple more times again and just get that next bunch affixed. And you'll notice that I overlapped this so that the flowers from this bunch sit right below the flowers on the next bunch. So grab some more flowers here, taking out some that are just a little bit smaller than I want to use. And I'll affix this third bunch right underneath. I'm going to get some foliage off there, trim the stems off, and add that to my wreath. All right, and I'm going to do kind of a fast forward here pretty soon through the rest of it, so you don't need to see all 20 minutes of me affixing this, but I'll just keep repeating this process over and over again. In total, it took me about 25 minutes to do this from start to finish, but I've sped it up a little bit so that you guys don't have to watch that whole process. Alrighty, so now that I'm getting to the very end, I'm going to just put in a couple more bunches here. And so I'll get my last few stems collected here. Trim off the extras that I don't need. So I'm just going to grab a couple more flowers for this bunch before I affix it to my wreath base. Going to get a couple of different sizes. And arrange them so they're at some different heights in my bunch. And then I'm going to trim off the extra stems, lay that on the base just like I have been this whole time, and take that floral wire and wrap it around 2 or 3 times and make sure that it's nice and secured. All right, so I'm going to do one more final bunch, same as before, and the only difference with this one is when I go to wrap the floral wire around it, I'm going to make sure that the stems get tucked in underneath the very first bunch I did, because you don't want stems kind of sticking out all willy-nilly at the very end of your arrangement. You want those to be hidden just like all your other ones. I'm going to take off some of this green leaves. It's really your personal preference, but I want to have more of the white flowers than the greenery. So I'm going to go and wrap this wire around, make sure it's nice and secure. And since this is the last one, once I'm done wrapping it, I'm going to give myself some extra wire so I can cut it and then keep wrapping it and kind of tie it on so that the flowers won't come loose. All right, so I'm gonna unwind this spool a little bit, give myself about 12 inches here, maybe more, take my wire snips and then cut them. I find that at the very end, it's just easier to work with if I don't have the spool attached. It's kind of clunky sometimes. And I'm just going to keep wrapping around until I feel like I'm confident that it's not going to come loose. And then for this one, I'm going to make a loop on the back and twist it and wrap that wire around. And that way I can use it to hang on the wall. Other options though, you can just, if you have like a over the door hanger, place the wreath directly on that. Or another one that I like to do is if you have some satin ribbon, I like about 1.5 inch width, you can thread it below the bunches between where the wire wraps around and just use that ribbon to hold it and tie a nice bow or a knot at the top, and then use that for hanging. But today I'm just going to make a little loop here, and now that I'm done, I tied that off and cut the excess off. And here is your wreath.